Well, good morning from the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. And I'm here on my time today, not volunteering, just going to do some live around the different galleries so I can do it and not be distracted. I've already met and spoken to a couple of nice gentlemen from Ireland in the Southeast Asia Gallery this morning who were asking some questions and actually took my information. I want to stay in touch. So I'm back in Building 4, which is the space and experimental and global reach and presidential galleries. So I'm going to see if I can flip the camera here. There we go. And this is one of our missiles. To get into the fourth building, you go through the missile gallery. Say hi, you're going global on TikTok. You're all around the world. This is a balloon gondola that was used for a high altitude parachute jump from the stratosphere. It was the Excelsior balloon gondola. Pardon the lighting. The lights are messed up in this building right now. So the Excelsior balloon, Captain Kittinger, did a jump from 102,800 feet. And this is what he looked like from that altitude. Not this little gray duck. I do not dig heights. It's funny, I'm afraid to step from a ladder onto a roof, but I can work. I can be in a helicopter at 8,000 feet with my feet hanging out the side. So I figure if I'm going to unalive by the time I hit the ground, I'm gone. Or if I fall off a roof, I'm just hurt. Hi everybody, thanks for joining. This is the Apollo 15 lunar command module. Was the only Apollo mission with an all Air Force crew. And this is the actual command module. (1971) EVA suit. This is an early warning satellite. I'll back off a little bit so you can see it. Lots and lots to see in this museum. It's the oldest and largest military aviation museum on Earth, bar none. 100 years old this year. Give you an idea of the scale of that satellite. Over here we have the Bell X-15. The orange and white are external fuel tanks. Various experimental lifting bodies. The North American XB-70 Valkyrie, the only remaining one of two that were built. And here underneath in the shadows is the X-3 Stiletto, built by Douglas Aircraft. Hi everybody, thanks for joining. This is an engine from the Valkyrie. Again, I know it's very dark and I apologize for that, but the computers that control the lights in this gallery are not functioning properly, so. This is the only X-3 that was ever built. You can see why it's called the Stiletto. This is the experimental research and development gallery of the museum. A lot of one-offs and one-of-a-kind aircraft here. Little XF-85 Goblin, which is a parasite fighter that was designed to be carried in the B-36 Peacemaker. Fisher P-75 Eagle with the contra-rotating props. Had two engines and two props. They spun in opposite directions. This is an X-10, which was an experimental missile. We have the, I believe this is an air, this is either an air cobra or an air comet. I think it's an air comet. Air comet, yeah. Which was effectively our first operational jet aircraft. And it used a centrifugal flow jet engine as opposed to most of which now are axial flow. Over here is a rocket sled, the G-Whiz. That was to test braking systems. And the Kestrel by Hawker, which was the predecessor to the Harrier. Back over here is the Thunder Screech. This was the loudest aircraft ever produced. It was so loud because the propeller tips were supersonic that it would actually make the ground crews sick. Had the A-12, which was an interceptor version of the SR-71. This is a YF-12, actually. Tacit Blue, which was an experimental. Here's a better view of the Thunder Screech. How's everybody doing this morning? Be sure and tap that screen for me. Share the live. I'll be live here for a while because I've got 4 galleries to go through. This is the Avro, the Avro Aero car built in Canada. Canadian military refused to fund it, so he came down and talked the Americans into funding the project. A D3 or a D4? I'm not sure what. Can you elucidate on that? Expand on that. What aircraft the D3 or D4 is? It's not jumping to my mind at the moment. I probably know it, but I can't think of it at the moment. XV3, which was an experimental tilt rotor. And you can see the rotor shaft. The engine was in there, and it's driven by gearing, and the props actually tilted forward. That was a kind of an early ancestor of the Osprey. So very, very Spocky looking, isn't it? Very Star Trek looking. This was a vertical takeoff experimental, the X-13. It was designed to take off and land in this configuration. Not very successful because the pilot really had trouble seeing it and controlling it on a vertical landing. Coming up on our left is the YF-23, which was the competitor to the F-22 Raptor in the competition for the first really production stealth after the F-117. And they felt that Northrop couldn't really meet the production, so that's why the Raptor won the contract, even though many think this was a superior aircraft. Hello, we are in Dayton, Ohio at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force, the oldest and largest military aviation museum on Earth. These are some experimental UAVs. And this is a temporary exhibit called Survival. And they do have a ropes course that the young people can try. This museum is funded solely by donations. They take no taxpayer dollars whatsoever. So therefore, we raise money through the foundation, through donations. And This is one event that does, normally temporary exhibits don't have a cost, but this does have a charge. An event ticket for either the simulators or the IMAX theater can be used to try the ropes course. Over here you see the crew compartment trainer for the space shuttle. Every astronaut that flew on a space shuttle trained on that trainer up front. Everything after that was built to scale. You walk up ramps, which are the wings, walk through the cargo bay, and you can look inside the flight deck and the lower crew quarters. We're now moving into Global Reach, which is the Air Force logistics. This particular aircraft, the C-119, was actually used to retrieve film that was dropped from satellites. It's called the satellite catcher. I'll come around aft and show you that. The flying boxcar. So please tap that screen and give me some likes there. Show me some love. Can you hear me okay?
Sorry guys, we're having some lighting problems. We're going to be closing up the gallery so we can turn the lights off without disturbing you guys.
Okay, well I guess they're going to close the gallery so they can work on the lights. So we'll come back to this gallery to finish up. We're going underneath the C-141 Starlifter, the Hanoi Taxi. This was the first aircraft to fly POWs out of Hanoi at the end of the Vietnam War. And Jim Bachman was the pilot who actually flew it into the museum when it came here. So we'll go through the missile gallery and up into Building 3, which is the Cold War gallery. We're passing by the crew compartment trainer. You can see the scale of it there. There you can see that missile. Are you able to hear me okay, folks? Be sure and tap that screen, give me some likes, and share the live. We're coming through now and going into the missile gallery. This is where various ICBMs are on display. Do feel free to ask questions. I will answer to the best of my ability, okay? Because I'm normally a volunteer here. So, are you able to hear me okay? Comment if you can hear me all right, okay? This is actually a Minuteman II missile procedures trainer that they used to train. My cousin was actually a missileer in the Air Force. He used to train. My cousin was actually a missileer in the Air Force. This is what it would have looked like in the bunkers to launch the ICBMs. Similar to what was in Cheyenne Mountain. And the lock on the door. We're now in the missile gallery looking up at various ICBMs. They do have a cafe and a gift shop upstairs here. Various stairs here. Various rocket motors. Most ICBMs have what's called MIRVs, or multiple independent reentry vehicles. So one missile can carry up to 10 or more nuclear warheads. But there you can see just how big these things are. This is the Jupiter intermediate range. And this was first launched in 1957. The Minuteman I was the first solid fuel ICBM. Folks, they're actually closing Building 4 to work on the lighting for about a half hour.
Okay.
This was the Peacekeeper missile. This was a 4-stage missile. This launched similar to techniques you use to way they launch missiles from submarines. Gallery, this silo basically, to replicate and help develop the space shuttle and reusable aircraft, reusable spacecraft. But the Hustler was a very, very thirsty beast. This landing gear was the original landing gear for the B-36 Peacemaker, but the aircraft was so heavy it destroyed the runways, and that's why they went to a 4-wheel bogey-type landing gear. Peacemaker was the largest piston engine bomber ever built by anybody, with 6 R-4360 28-cylinder radial engines and 4 turbojet engines. This aircraft, the Hustler, had the Harmon Trophy, Blériot Trophy, the Thompson Trophy, the McKay Trophy, and the Bendix Trophy, all for speed records and endurance records. And to protect the crew during supersonic ejections, each crew member had an ejection pod that actually clamshell closed, and the pilot could actually control the aircraft from inside that ejection pod until he actually departed the aircraft from the escape capsule. The Hustler had a crew of 3. This is a J-79, which was the first jet engine I actually first worked on in Navy Jet Mechanics School. Was used in hundreds of types of aircraft. This one actually goes into motion and shows you how an axial flow jet engine works. You have your compressor, and each compressor blade, you have rotary vanes combined with stator blades, which are stationary, and they get progressively smaller to compress the air. It goes into the combustion section where it's mixed with fuel and ignited. This one used a 3-stage turbine. And then into your afterburner section where raw fuel is dumped in and ignited to augment the thrust. And now we're looking into the afterburner. How's everybody doing today? Comment where you're watching from. I'd love to know. This was a surface-to-air missile. This was called the Snark surface-to-air missile, SM-62. And it was designed to shoot down nuclear bombers. It was a nuclear deterrent missile. Various missiles here. Here's a J-73 turbojet. And a cutaway of a Sabre under the skin, so you can actually see the cannons. The yellow is the liquid oxygen bottles. Various avionics, ammunition. We're on the starboard side of the aircraft right now. Take a shot down the intake here. You can see just how far back the engine actually sat. Now we're on the port side of the aircraft with the gravity controlled slats. On the port side, you have your air conditioner, 20 millimeter gun. Again, your avionics. We're under the aft end of the B-36 Peacemaker. Had a crew of 13, I believe. You have the RF-84 Thunder Flash. Any aircraft with an R designates a reconnaissance aircraft, so it's a reconnaissance fighter. Grumman Albatross here on my right, flying. This was an amphibian, as opposed to a flying boat. Amphibians have landing gear, flying boats don't. That's the difference. An Italian aircraft, Marchetti, I believe. No, I'm sorry. That's a Republic Thunder Streak, F-84. And this was a small thermonuke that was carried by the F-84, Mark 7 nuclear bomb. Another F-86 Sabre over here underneath the YB-50, which was the successor to the B-29. There's a KC-97 refueling tanker. There's a front view of the Albatross. You can see the B-50's B-29 parentage. This was actually a weather reconnaissance aircraft. This is in Dayton, Ohio. If you want to see the website, it's nationalmuseum.af.mil. And we also offer a free app called Cockpit 360 that works on Apple or Android that you can use anywhere, that allows you to see inside over 116 of the aircraft in the museum here. Here's a Willys quarter-ton Jeep. The museum is celebrating 100 years this year, making it the oldest and largest military aviation museum on Earth. Almost 20 acres under roof with over 350 aircraft and vehicles on display. The aircraft over here actually survived a nuclear blast. It was used as a test bed to see what the results of the nuclear bomb had on the aircraft. And as you can see, it's not pretty. Ah, very good. I was in the Navy from 1976 to 1982. It's an exhibit on nuclear testing and development. Mark 6 nuclear bomb. I'll come around the side. You can see just how big this beastie is. I was a Navy aircraft mechanic. I was qualified to work on 80 different types of aircraft when I got out. You can see the three RF 4360s on the B-36 wing. There's a pusher configuration. It had 6 pusher props and 4 jets. How's everybody doing this morning? Nope, this is the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And here you can see the cockpit and fuselage of the B-36. Here's an F-94C Starfire. You can see it had unguided rocket pod in the wing. These actually was designed to carry nuclear rockets. And it also carried them in the nose, like so. A Continental engine using the T-34 Mentor, which is hanging up over our head here. I worked on those. There's 2 of the 4 turbojet engines on the B-36. We do actually have a lot of the German aircraft were actually brought over to Wright-Patterson and tested after World War II. And as we go up into the World War II gallery, you'll see we have an actual ME-262. We have an ME-163 Comet. We have a V-1, a V-2. We have a Focke-Wulf FW-190 and a BF-109. This is the Canadair CF-100, the Canuck, they called it. And here you can see how big the B-36 is. I'm going to show you the people walking underneath the bomb bay. And there you can see how big that beastie is. So many of the German aircraft we have were actually captured after the war and brought over and flown and tested here at Wright-Patterson. Wright-Patterson is still an active military base and does a lot of testing. This is the Betty Joe, which is an F-82 twin Mustang. This particular aircraft holds the world record for the longest non-stop flight by a piston engine fighter from New York to Hawaii, non-stop. Morning, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good, thanks for coming.
We have 2 vehicles that were designed to be used for recruiting tools, taken to college campuses, plus the motorcycle that was built by Orange County Choppers. Have the F-89 Scorpion. This was designed to be a nuclear rocket aircraft, carried nuclear missiles. You can see one under the wing there. And they were designed to be air-to-air missiles with a nuclear blast to take down nuclear bombers or atomic bombers coming in. Plane did not have a very long service life because they had trouble with the wings flexing, and it just really didn't have much of a service life. B-2 Spirit. This was one of the Spirit bombers that was built for static testing to see how it reacted under load. It never flew. 22 were built for actual use. 1 crashed, 21 remain in service. This is the only B-2 Spirit on static display anywhere in the world that you can actually come and look at.
Hello, visitors, and welcome to
We have
the
various
National Museum of the United
sitting
States
cockpits
Air
that children can
Force.
sit in.
We invite you to join a free guided tour of the Early Years Gallery to experience the beginnings of flight with the Wright
Which one right here?
brothers and the evolution of
That is the
aircraft
B-2
from
Spirit
sticks
Stealth
and fabrics
Raider,
to a metal airplane and an enclosed
or B-2
cockpit.
Spirit,
Those who will
and
guide
it's
you
being
into
replaced
the
by the
World War II
B-21.
Gallery, which features the first bomber to take off from
We'll
an
come up
aircraft
under
carrier,
here.
the first jet fighter aircraft, and the historic Memphis Belle. Please join the tour at the entrance to the Early Years Gallery at the
This
top
was the
of the
DF,
gallery.
I believe I'm trying to remember the number on this drone. It was designed to fly supersonic like the SR-71 and drop the film cartridges back. You can see the similarity of the SR-71, which we're coming up on the left here. We are at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio. the D-21, nose on view, SR-71 Blackbird with the J-58 turbojet. Website for this museum is nationalmuseum.af.mil. So this aircraft flew about 2,193 miles an hour. They flew one of these from New York to London in 1 hour 54 minutes. Beat the previous record by almost 3 hours. 1,500 miles. They flew one 15,000 miles in 10.5 hours using air-to-air refueling. And the altitude, 85,069 feet. So this is still the fastest manned air-breathing jet aircraft in the world. And because of the heat, it was built of titanium. When it was built, we didn't have a source for titanium, so the CIA created shell companies, and they bought the titanium from Russia to build an aircraft to observe Russia. F-102 Delta Dagger. And you can see the internal weapons bay with the missiles. A head-on view of the SR-71. The Blackbird was actually the family version, had a pilot and a radar navigator. The Cockpit 360 app lets you see inside the cockpit of this with a 360 view. You see the cones in the inlet of the engine. Those move in and out to keep the air to the engine subsonic so that the engine doesn't flame out. This is an F-104 Starfighter here under the wing.
I'll try and show you a picture.
F-104 was basically a rocket with them. Oh, were you? Yeah, I volunteer once a month, but I came over today just as a visitor to make content and do some lives. So this is the head-on view of the F-104 called the Starfighter. This is an F-101. F-100 Super Sabre, painted in Thunderbird colors. This is the F-101B Voodoo. In the Southeast Asia gallery, you have the RF-101 Voodoo, which is a reconnaissance version. And the one in the gallery actually broke down en route to my en route to the museum in 1979 and stopped at Meridian, Mississippi, where I was stationed. And I worked on it to get it up here. We have the Delta Dart here, the F-106. This is actually a famous aircraft. If you look on YouTube, look up the Cornfield Bomber, and it will tell you the story of this particular aircraft, which went into a flat spin. The pilot ejected, and the plane recovered and flew on unmanned until it came to rest in a cornfield with the engine running. It was recovered, repaired, and put back into service, and came to the museum in August of 1986. And this is the actual Cornfield Bomber. T-37 trainer based on the A-37 Tweet. We called them whistling S-cans. F-4 Phantom. I believe this is a C model. This is either a B or a C model. Phantom was the first aircraft that I actually touched in Navy Jet Mechanics School. These are actual parts of the Berlin Wall. And that were brought over. Back behind here is a sit-in cockpit for an F-4 Phantom that you can actually sit in the cockpit. The F-4D Phantom cockpit. Oh, okay, that's a G model Phantom. Okay, I stand corrected. This Trabant is similar to what was used by many to escape from West Germany. And this was actually a brand new Trabant that was done by our exhibit department to look distressed, but this was actually a brand new Trabant. The Trabant had, I believe, a 2-cylinder engine and just built very cheap like most Russian cars were. Here's a MiG 2023 Flogger. Yes, this is an actual MiG. Aliens or not? Interesting. A lot of debate on that. So I don't know. I'm a Christian. And I tend to not think so, but that's my opinion. I respect everybody's opinion. Um, this aircraft actually flew in Desert Storm and flew missions in Desert Shield. I mean, and Storm flew 172 sorties over Desert Shield and Desert Storm. F4. F-111 Aardvark flew out of Lake and Heath, England. Unique thing about the swing wing on the F-111 is that the pylons, underwing pylons for the weapon stores actually pivoted in relation to the aircraft, so they stayed parallel to the fuselage even when the wing was extended. It's a very complicated mechanism, but when they swung the wing out, the pylons actually changed their orientation, so the weapons were still pointed straight ahead. MiG-29 Fulcrum, right here on my right. Oh, you're fine. MiG-29 still being used by many air forces around the world today, and Russia's trying to get enough of them back to still keep using them in Ukraine. F-15 Eagle. With various underwing stores, fuel tanks, AMRAAM missiles, the AIM-120 AMRAAM, the GBU, paveway bomb. Give you some information on the paveway here. Yep, absolutely. And here you can see the seeker nose that's used to follow the laser designator into the target. C-130 gunship. Nose on view of the F-15 Eagle. And the world's first operational stealth aircraft. Many called it the stealth fighter, but it was not. It was a bomber, the F-117 Nighthawk. Here's the Panavia Tornado. And you can see the various weaponry on the gunship. Got your Bofors guns. And the howitzer. 105 millimeter cannon. This was for your television sensor system for targeting. Two miniguns. Two more miniguns up there. Coming up under the port wing of the Aardvark F-111. A-10 Warthog. I worked on the A model A-10s when they first came into service in about 1979. They would fly to my Navy base, and I would service them and refuel them. The GAU-8 Gatling gun cannon, 30 millimeter cannon, as well as the various underwing stores and hard points. So it's a long way up there. Long way to get up into that, and a long way up to check the oil on top of those engines. We'll go around here and get a better shot of the GAU-8. CV-22 Osprey. I'll pull back a little bit so you can see the entire GAU-8. And that shows you just how big it is in relation to the aircraft. The ammo drums are clear back ahead of the leading edge of the wing. Barrel comes out the front. Cartridges are about the size of a Red Bull can. And this is a ammo loading cart. It's powered by the aircraft hydraulic system. It's used strictly to load and unload the A-10. It's the only thing this cart is built for. If you look on YouTube, you can see videos of them loading the ammo and unloading the ammo into the aircraft with this. Very cool to watch, so I do recommend you check it out. MH-53. Yes, I worked on these too. There's your one of your, I don't know if that's a Predator or, I think that's a Predator drone. This was the Pave Low, which was a special ops helicopter. The B-1 Lancer, also known as the Bone. Program was canceled by Jimmy Carter and reinstated by President Reagan. Here's a bomb disposal robot. And an EOD suit. You see the particle separators on the front of the engines. This tells about the battle at Takur Ghar. This is Staff Master Sergeant Colon Lopez from Afghanistan. These are all actual airmen who took part in the Battle of Takur Ghar.
personal recovery is going to happen. You never know when you're going to be called. We were in a constant fight for the first 6 hours.
I remember seeing the bullet holes coming through the side of the helicopter, almost like daylight, popping through. You can see the dust floating in the air. Here we go. I knew we were going to war.
Afghanistan, 2002. United States began Operation Anaconda to combat Al-Qaeda and Taliban forces. On March 4th, a small reconnaissance team,
Appreciate everybody being here.
Air Force Combat Controller John Chapman, attempted to land on a key mountaintop overlook on Tucker Gar, starting a 17-hour-long intense and at times desperate struggle. Around 3 a.m., as their helicopter tried to land, they were ambushed by a well-hidden enemy force. Machine gun fire and rocket-propelled grenades, or RPGs, ripped through the helicopter, causing Navy SEAL Neil Roberts to fall out. The partially disabled helicopter made an emergency landing in the valley far below, leaving Roberts alone among the enemy on Tucker Gar. Sergeant Chapman quickly established communications and initiated a rescue mission. Another helicopter picked up the team and took it back to the mountaintop. There, Chapman advanced and assaulted an enemy bunker from an exposed position. He cleared the first bunker, but while engaging the second, he was shot. Overwhelmed and heavily wounded, the team was forced to retreat.
We are well on right top of the ridge. Speed for the second fly on top of the ridge. Aim down. Have troops down. Marshal PIA. Fire on top now.
Meanwhile, a rescue force assembled. 9 Army Rangers and their Air Force Terminal Attack Controller Kevin Vance boarded the helicopter Razor 1 with an Air Force team consisting of Combat Controller Gabe Brown and pararescuemen Jason Cunningham and Kerry Miller.
We're woken up out of dead sleep. Basically started running to the planning cell and pushing guys to the helicopter. It's personal recovery, so there's a lot of unknowns.
The rescue force did not know that Roberts had already been killed and that the reconnaissance team had moved down the mountain. Nor were they aware that a lone airman had begun to fight again. Thought to be dead, Chapman regained consciousness and, though severely wounded, held his position for nearly an hour against multiple enemy personnel. At 6 a.m., as the sun rose, Razor 1 arrived at Tucker Gar. Chapman broke from cover and provided suppressive fire for the approaching helicopter before being fatally struck. For his heroism and sacrifice, Sergeant John Chapman was awarded the Medal of Honor. Razor 1 had sustained heavy damage.
After we were clearing the land, we hit 3 or 4 RPGs, small arms fire started just ripping through the airframe.
Before we hit the ground, we just took an enormous amount of fire. The helicopter hit the ground pretty hard, but we immediately started exiting the aircraft.
4 Army personnel were dead and several wounded.
You instantly knew that, hey, you got to stay here and fight. We had too many wounded to do anything else. You're in a battle for your life. Cunningham stayed in the helicopter. He started treating the wounded with the aircrew medic, and they started working some of the wounded that never made it out. Myself, I started treating the guys that got hit right when I came off the ramp. Sergeant Brown, he kind of slid off to the side behind that rock element and immediately got on comms and started talking to the aircraft.
Assess myself, what's my job here? What's my role? How do I make an impact? Let's work at the long-term problem here. Let's get up on communications and let the world know about it.
At around 7 a.m., Sergeant Brown directed the first of many airstrikes against the perilously close enemy positions. The first air attacks were strafing runs by U.S. Air Force fighters.
I checked my danger close book, gives me estimated distances on what our risk is if we have these bombs come close to us. And just toss that book down. I gave them their cleared hot, and I had my fingers crossed a little bit. You can smell the pines being shredded by the F-15s and F-16s.
The team was in a difficult position. They were fighting in snow at high altitude against a larger enemy force entrenched above them. They had little cover, and their numbers were dwindling. Despite being wounded, Sergeant Vance fought on the firing line with the Rangers. From his forward position, he was able to provide vital guidance to ground and Ranger Commander Captain Nate Self on using air power to improve the battlefield situation. When the fighters ran out of cannon rounds, Brown called in bombs.
You hear the thing rocking in for a while. You hear the fighter pull off. Then it's waiting, and finally that thing hit the ground.
We were probably missing their bunker by maybe 5 to 10 feet sometimes. It still wasn't affecting. The ground was just so frozen. They were so well dug in up there. We did have one bomb that hit kind of in the saddle of the hill that just rocked our world. Without close air support, I don't think we could hear it.
Around 11 a.m., the rescue team was joined by another group of Rangers that had landed partway down the mountain and climbed to the peak, doubling their number. After a direct Hellfire missile hit destroyed the enemy's main bunker, a ground assault finally took the mountaintop. As the team secured the bunkers, they found the bodies of Neil Roberts and John Chapman. But while moving the rest of their casualties into the fortified uphill position, an enemy attack from a nearby ridge took the Americans by surprise.
We just get lit up. I actually watched the RPG get fired from a rock outcropping and accelerate at us. You know, I could have caught this thing with a baseball glove.
That same enemy attack seriously wounded Cunningham.
He got hit. He was in the process of moving the cattle cage, and then he went down.
Somebody violated a perimeter on one of the
About
aircraft.
6 critical patients. He was giving me kind of a quick handover of exactly what patients he had.
Now we'll go up under the B-1 here. And again, we have a B-1 cockpit you can actually get in. Here's the Osprey off to the left, tilt rotor. I call it the airplane with the helicopter with an identity crisis. The B-1 it actually flies nap of the Earth, uses a ground terrain following radar. It can fly supersonic at ultra low level, staying under radar. Morning. Here's looking inside the B-1 cockpit. And here's an F-16 sitting cockpit. No, sorry, T-38 cockpit. Here's the F-16 over here. Now we're coming under the starboard wing of the B-2 Spirit. And that pretty well completes the Cold War gallery. So I've got some Boy Sprouts here. They can be very oblivious to anybody else. We'll go over and do a swing by of the OCC chopper. Morning, how you doing? Good, thanks. Now we're going to go through the Berlin Wall exhibit, showing about the Berlin Airlift exhibit, showing when the Russians and the East Germans first divided Berlin. The Berlin Airlift kept the Berliners alive by airlifting in food, clothing, tens of thousands of tons of coal, and more, flying it all in by aircraft, hundreds of flights a day.
Hey guys, you gotta get over this side.
On my right is the Kettering model aircraft display. These will all be moving up to Kettering Hall, where they're building new cases for them now. Gives an idea of how much coal. All that coal was Southeast Asia Gallery. Thanks for the likes, folks. I appreciate it. Please feel free to share. I'm going to be live for a little bit more here. We've got 2 more galleries to do. As I said, we take no taxpayer dollar. We're funded solely by donations. So simulator rides, the IMAX theater, special events where organizations can rent out the museum for dinners and parties and dances and things like that, proms. Over here you can see the Global Hawk and the Predator drones. F-22 Raptor. We'll start on the Korea side here, but this one, I think they put it here just for space constraints. I wish they'd have built more F-22s instead of that silly F-35. I know the young man who actually oversaw all the disbursement of funds for the entire F-35 project, and he said it was a waste of billions of dollars. There's just so much money wasted on that, it was unbelievable. Of course, all the weapons are carried in internal weapons bays, and the only time the aircraft is visible to radar is when those weapons bays are open. The museum, we charge no admission here at the museum. We do provide free wheelchairs, strollers, and mobility scooters as they're available. F-80 shooting, or P-80 Shooting Star, F-80 by that time. During the war, they were called P for pursuit aircraft, and then the designation was changed to F for fighter. U.S. aces in Korea. To South Korea. Welcome back. Sorry, we had a glitch in the network there, but we're back. A North Korean pilot defected with this MiG and brought it to the Allies during the Korean War, and he was given a $100,000 reward. This museum is located at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. Website is nationalmuseum.af.mil. Have an A-20 Havoc here. I'm sorry, B-26 Charlie. Designed for a night fighter and night bomber role. Beautiful aircraft. I love the black paint scheme. course, the B-26 was based on the Marauder airframe from World War II. This is the Dream Girl. F-84 Saberjet, the Thunderjet. F-94 Starfire. Another example of, we got a couple of these in the museum. And this was your Radio Jeep Ford air control that were used in conjunction with the Mosquito aircraft here to call in tactical air support. This is the T-6 Mosquito. They're showing about the strategic bombing. B-29s were used in Korea. This is a B-29 fuselage section you can actually walk through. I'm going to try to thread the needle here. I love seeing the little ones get excited. Tells about strategic bombing in Korea. B-45 Tornado. Early SAR aircraft from Korea. A lifeboat that was actually designed to be dropped from a B-29 to downed airmen if they were down at sea. The UH-19 Chickasaw, search and rescue aircraft powered by a radial engine. This shows how it was mounted. You've got your dual magnetos. Basically the same technology as the radial engines from late World War I. And we'll get into the difference between a radial and a rotary engine as we get up into the early years gallery. How's everybody doing today? Please feel free to like and share this live. I'm going to be live for, I don't know, a little while yet. Got more to go. Just talked about Medal of Honor recipients in Korea, of which there were 2. Shows the various Medal of Honor recipients in Korea. Talking about POWs in Korea. Rice bowl and spoon, Chinese cigarettes, POW notebook. And they were captured by the North Koreans and / Chinese. This is called a Globe Master, and it was based on the B-29 airframe as well. And we're coming into the Southeast Asia Gallery now. These are the simulators that are available. VR and simulator rides that help fund the museum. A1E Sky, that's a D or an E, that's an E Sky Raider, used for closed air support for downed airmen. They were called Sandies. B-52D. B-52 still flying today. By the time they're done, they're going to be flying over probably 100 years before they're done. They're re-engineing them now with more efficient engines, Rolls-Royce engines they're going to be getting. Yeah, Barksdale has a good museum. This is the official Air Force museum. As I said, it's the oldest and largest in the world, 100 years old this year. Here's a B-52 cockpit that you can look inside. I talked about the RF-101 that broke down en route to the museum in 1979 that I helped repair to get here, and this is the aircraft right here. It came in at Naval Air Station Meridian, Mississippi. So I actually worked on this particular aircraft. We're under the starboard wing of the B-52. There's a great display throughout the museum talking about women in the Air Force and women in Southeast Asia. Helio Courier, Super Courier up above. Again, was a light transport as well as a personnel carrier for there's an O-1 up above us, which was an observation aircraft. O-2, which was a ground support aircraft and forward air support, based on the Cessna Skymaster, which had 2 engines, pusher and a puller. Another B-57 Canberra. And the A-37 attack version of the Tweet. So here's the Canberra, which is based on a British aircraft. OV-10 Mohawk, or OV-10 Bronco, which were built in Columbus, Ohio, at Rockwell on 5th Avenue. There's a B-26K gunship based on A-26 Counter Invader, it was called. UH-1P Iroquois. Various Starbirds. H-53. This aircraft was actually flown by the CIA, and one of the pilots who flew it comes in periodically to talk about it. H-53. We're under the EC-121. And now we're back behind the A-1E Sky Raider that just came out of restoration. Can't go over to that side because they are reconfiguring that for a display, so we can't really get over into that. Another F-105, Memphis Belle 2. Various precision-guided weapons. This was Colonel Robin Olds, Brigadier General Robin Olds' F-4 that he shot down 2 or 3 MiGs in one mission in. RB-66. Another F-111 over here to my right. We'll go back into here to show the armored personnel carrier The F4 used the J79 engine as well. This is an after view of the J79. Even the Air Force Phantoms had tail hooks. There's a Cadillac fighting vehicle. Glad to have you all with us here. Please feel free to share and like this. We'd love to have more people in here. And comment if you're enjoying this, if you can hear me okay. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. This is the A7D Corsair II, which is one of the type, Navy flew the A7 as well. I worked on those, one of my 80 types. F-111s I worked on. This is the aft view of the RF-101 coming up on our right. F-105 Wild Weasel. Wild Weasel denotes missions that they flew with radar signal identifiers. They would find the radars for enemy SAMs in Vietnam, and then they would launch missiles to take out that surface-to-air radar for the SA-2 missiles so the B-52s could get in. This tells about this particular B-52 and the battle damage that it took being hit by an SA-2. B-52 carries huge strings of bombs. We'll go up under the bomb bay here, and you can actually look up inside. This tells about the Linebacker 2 missions. So now we're under the bomb bay, in the bomb bay of the B-52. You can see what it looks like from the bomb bay as the bombs come out. This is repainted based on an aerial photograph.
The bases in Guam, Thailand, and Okinawa, B-52 workers flew about 125,000 part-flight stories. They absorbed one aircraft, one mission, and dropped almost 3.5 million tons of bombs.
During Operation Linebacker and Linebacker 2, they dropped over 15,000 tons of bombs on North Vietnam. Here's the nose-on view of the F-105 Wild Weasel. You can see the radar jammers. There's an SA-2 back over in there. They're having plane talks by veterans who actually worked on and flew in these missions at the various aircraft. Today is Vietnam Veterans Day at the museum. National Vietnam Veterans Day, and in commemoration of that, they're having plane talks by veterans that served in Vietnam that flew these various missions. This is the missing man table. This is set in commemoration of those that did not return. I see they left the Bible off again. I was supposed to have a Bible on it. But we can't offend people nowadays, so since I'm on my own time, I can say that. These are various POW uniforms. And this shows you actually inside the size of the cells that these POWs were subjected to. Now come around the end, it shows the inside of the cell. That's all the more room they had in their cells. And they were shackled by the feet to their bunks. Now we come clear around the Southeast Asia Gallery. Yeah, I drove from Pataskala east of Columbus to come over. I volunteer once a month, but I came over today just not volunteering so I could do this live and do some content for my TikTok and YouTube. So we're going to make our way now up to the early years in World War II gallery. We're kind of going in reverse order. Normally you start at early years and work your way chronologically, but I started at the back. We're kind of doing a reverse. So anybody who's not nearby that has not visited or wants to see the museum, we do have a great virtual tour at nationalmuseum.af.mil, as well as the ACI Cockpit 360 app that lets you see inside over 116 of the aircraft in the museum. We'll make a quick stop at the National Aviation Hall of Fame. And this is separate from the museum, but they do have space in here. This talks Okay, we are back. Sorry, we had to change networks here because they have their own Wi-Fi in here. I was not aware of that. This talks about early flight. Of course, the Wright brothers were from Dayton. So this is the wing model that the Wright brothers used wing warping to control roll on the aircraft, where Curtiss actually used ailerons. So we're probably going to break signal here in just a minute when we go back out of the Hall of Fame, back into the regular museum. Let me make sure I'm back on the right network here.
Hey, you.
Okay, now we're back on the museum Wi-Fi. And we're coming down the hallway. This has exhibits of flight suits as well as bomber jackets.
It has all the years, through the ages. These real soldiers wore these jackets.
So, upcoming events here at the museum. April 8th.
Yeah, you have to take your way through, and then go down this hall.
I'll freeze on that so you can actually see that.
QR code to scan for the map. Oh, here we go. Maybe that's it.
I don't think it. Yeah, I don't think there's a QR code for the map. I've not seen that yet. Now we're going to go into the World War II gallery.
B-17 right here.
And we're starting at the Pearl Harbor attack right here. The flag over here was flying over the USS St. Louis during the attack at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941.
B-61.
What aircraft are you guys trying to find? Sorry, it's hard not to think as a volunteer when I'm over here, because that's what I do. Now we're going into the war in the Pacific. B-18 Bolo. This is the link trainer, which was used to train thousands and thousands of pilots before they put them in a real aircraft. Was an early flight simulator.
Looks like it's a training simulator.
That was what was used to train pilots before they put them in real airplanes. Over here we have an actual German Enigma machine and the American Code machine. If you look up code breakers at Bletchley Park, the Sagaba and the Enigma, World War II encryption machines. Have an actual Mitsubishi A6M0. And we're coming up here now to the Doolittle Raider exhibit. The goblet of the Doolittle Raiders that they toasted each other. Survivors toasted their crews with at their reunions. And as they passed away, the goblets were turned over to show that they had deceased, and the last raider passed away a couple years ago. This is the B-25 Mitchell, similar to the 16 that were launched off the aircraft carrier Hornet to bomb Tokyo. P-39 Air Cobra. And here you can see the drivetrain with the cannon that fired through the propeller of the P-39. Allison V-1710 engine. So it ran off the gearbox. The shaft ran out the front of the engine, through the gearbox, up to the propeller, and it had the cannon that fired straight through the center of the hub. Again, the B-25 Mitchell. Over here it's the P-40 Warhawk. British called it the Kitty Hawk.
Stick together. Carter Joe.
And we're coming up on the B-24D Liberator. 18,880 some built during the war, 13 survived today. Only one flying condition. Great exhibit on the Tuskegee Airmen off to my right here. And the Beaufighter over here. PT-13 primary trainer that was used to train Tuskegee Airmen. Made by Stearman. One of our volunteers built this P-51 model. Again, here's the B-24 Liberator. At the peak production at the Willow Run factory in Michigan, they turned out one B-24 Liberator with over 250,000 parts every 55 minutes. This is the Memphis Belle, first U.S. heavy bomber to survive 25 missions and return to the States with her crew. One of our guided tours that they do periodically throughout the day.
So we were accepting up to 10% losses per mission. Now we like to highlight the story of this airplane specifically. It is by far the most famous airplane.
This talks about the crew of the Memphis Belle. The pilot's wife actually came, and his son actually came when they unveiled the aircraft in 2018. And I was here for that opening. We spent 13 and a half years restoring this aircraft. These are all memorabilia from artifacts from the war. We're under the tail section and empennage of the Belle now. There's the ball turret. This stained glass window is beautiful. Wish people keep their hands off the exhibit. They don't realize that skin oil can destroy an aircraft or any artifact. The German F-88 flat cannon, anti-aircraft gun, an Apache dive bomber, P-38 Lightning over here on our left. There's a BF-109, Messerschmitt, P-47 Thunderbolt, P-38 Lightning, B-26 Marauder.
Well, it's a modification at this point. That's the reason it's called something different.
C-47 Commando based on the DC-3 and a CG-4 Hadrian glider, similar to those used in D-Day. P-51 Mustang. Now we're at the tail section of the B-24. These are small howitzers that would have been carried in the gliders during the D-Day invasion. And little Cushman scooters. Aft end of the B-24 Liberator. De Havilland DH-98 Mosquito, built out of wood, the Wooden Wonder they called it. German V-1 Buzz Bomb, which used a pulse jet engine. And then back behind is a V-2. A BF-110 on my right here. I'll try to get around here without getting run over. A Ju-88, I'm sorry. That's a Junkers Ju-88, along with a Fritz, which was the first guided bomb. A boxcar similar to what was used to transport POWs and those to concentration camps.
So those V1 bombs, right? They were so resilient. You could like.
There's a Spitfire. F'd up Focke-Wulf 190. Me-163 Comet, the only operational rocket fighter ever used in combat in history. And the Me-262A, which was the Messerschmitt, first operational jet fighter in the world. Used the Umo 004 engine made by Junkers. Metallurgy was so poor that every 10 hours they had to rebuild the engine, and every 100 hours they had to replace it. The CG-46 Commando. Another P-47. This was the Razorback version of the P-47. A-20 Havoc, which used the Twin Wasp radial engine. An OA-10, another amphibian based on the Navy version, called it the PBY-5A. They made the PBY-5, which was a flying boat, and the 5A, which was an amphibian. One of the three most famous aircraft in history. This is Boxcar. This is the B-29 that dropped the atomic bomb on Nagasaki that ended World War II. This is not a mock-up. This is the aircraft that dropped the second atomic bomb, one of only two ever dropped in combat. The first one was the Enola Gay, which is at the Udvar Hazy facility in D.C. Paul Tibbets, who flew the Enola Gay, lived in Bexley, and I used to sell him bicycles for his grandchildren when I ran a bicycle shop. Another Japanese aircraft here on our left. I believe it's a Kawanishi, or Nakaji, I think it's Kawanishi. This was called the George. Yeah, Kawanishi. We're coming up onto the aft end of the boxcar.
Whereby peace may be restored.
So we'll come out of here and then we'll go across the hall to the early years gallery, which is 1909 all the way up through just before World War II. Now we're coming across here. This is Kettering Hall, where those models are going to be moved to. The display cases for the Kettering model display that I was telling you about earlier. On our right is the museum gift shop. This is the entrance. We'll go up through here and go into the early years gallery. It's the entry hall where you can actually get maps or figure out your bearings in the museum. Holocaust exhibit, entering the early years gallery. So it actually starts with balloons up top here. On our right is an actual piece of a Civil War Confederate observation balloon used during the Civil War, 1861 to 1863. We're talking about ballooning during the Spanish-American War. Otto Lilienthal, who was a glider. Curtis Pusher up above here. Early dirigibles bought by the U.S. military. This is an actual piece of fabric from the original Wright Flyer in 1903. Talking about the first fatality of an aircraft crash. Over here is the rifle that fired the first shot in history from an airplane. Various pieces of early Wright aircraft. Various pieces of early Wright aircraft. The early Aero Club medal. Showing how the propellers failed. Just basically come apart because of the centripetal force. Showing the chain drive on the Wright Flyer. This one still used the wing warping, but unlike lying prone like the Wright brothers did on the 1903 Flyer, this one could carry two people and they sat upright. There's another wind tunnel. You can see much more progressive than the 1901 version. Beautiful marquetry. And actual Wright aircraft engines. This is a Kirkham aircraft engine. And a Roberts. And this is a Wright 6-cylinder engine. Here's a Sturtevant 6-cylinder, 140 horsepower. Up above we have a JN1 Standard. Various World War I aircraft. These are not replicas, these are original. Eugene Bullard, who was America's first black military aviator. These are artifacts from Lieutenant Quentin Roosevelt, who was Theodore Roosevelt's son, who was shot down in World War I. He was given a full military funeral, and the cross there was actually placed at his grave by the Germans. Newport 28, French aircraft. Sopwith Pup. Another wind tunnel. Actual piece of tail fabric that was captured from a plane shot down by Ernst Udet. Look up that name, very famous in German history all the way up through World War II. SPAD 13, which was flown by, similar to type flown by Eddie Rickenbacker in 94th Aero Squadron.
Oh, look, there's your carrier pigeon.
Halberstadt CL4. Various squadron insignia from World War I. And the Kettering Bug, which was basically the first unmanned aerial torpedo. Cutaway of a Curtiss J1 Standard, showing how they're constructed with the wooden frame covered with fabric and doped. Albatross D7. De Havilland DH4. This is a Caproni bomber, Italian bomber, heavy bomber. Various Liberty engines in 8, 6, and 4-cylinder configurations. If you look behind the engines there on the struts, those are actually the radiators for the engines. This is a Lusac 11. Probably familiar with Eddie Rickenbacker's name. Eddie Rickenbacker was America's leading ace in World War I. Went on to found Eastern Airlines. Owned the Indianapolis racetrack for many years. This is his Medal of Honor, along with Harold Gottler's Medal of Honor. Again, showing the construction of the fabric covered. Usually these were built of spruce or ash for weight savings and strength. Various early aero trophies. Early aerial cameras. And bomb sites. This is the Martin MB-2 bomber. You see the Fokker DR-1 triplane hanging upside down there. Model T ambulance. These beacons were placed across the route for the early airmail, and they would flash, and that's how pilots navigated at night. Little diorama of a seaplane base out of Seattle, Washington. Now we're getting into post-war, various aircraft engines here. Again, this is a radial engine, a Wright 790, where the crankshaft turned, not the engine, unlike a rotary. various Curtiss aircraft, the P-6 and the P-12, and the Kellett autogyro, the Boeing P-26, P-26P shooter, as well as artifacts from the airship Roma, the O-28 that actually crashed in the Arctic and was there for about 40 years before it was brought out and brought to the museum and restored. Martin B-10, first monoplane metal skin bomber that the U.S. had. Only remaining one of these on Earth. Returned to the U.S. from Argentina, who had it in their Air Force. Various training aircraft up overhead, as well as with the German insignia there. That was actually towed behind U-boats at altitude to help the U-boat crew spot the enemy surface combatants. Trainers were designated as T's and BTs. BT stood for basic trainer. Up above there is a de Havilland Tiger Moth, which many are still flying today. There's a BT-13. And coming up here is a Hawker Hurricane, which was the counterpart to the Spitfire. More Hurricanes were produced than Spitfires, but the Spitfire gained more notoriety. They say any landing you can walk away from is a good landing. And here you can see a cadet catching heck for that good landing. I'm just trying to stay out of your picture. Thank you. Here's the Hawker Hurricane. And now we'll look at a group of early aviation engines. So this is a radial engine. It was a radial, but it was water cooled, which was unique. The Wasp was a rotary engine, which meant that the crankcase spun and the prop was bolted to the crankcase, so the cylinders actually went around. You can tell a rotary from a radial because a radial will have an exhaust manifold, a rotary will not. So this is the Bentley BR2, which is a 9-cylinder rotary. Renault 12 FE engine. Lorraine Dietrich. This is the Curtiss K12, which was a 12-cylinder. Benz, which became Daimler-Benz. The Anzani and the RAF-1A engine. Now we're on the port side of the Caproni. And we've just completed the early years gallery, and that pretty much takes us through all 4 galleries, all the buildings of the U.S. Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. So I will be reposting this on my YouTube channel, which is at Bill_H. Once I get home and get it downloaded. Here's a better view of the Hurricane. So I think we'll go through the Holocaust exhibit real quickly here. And then we'll end the live. So I hope you all have enjoyed this. And thank you for sticking with me. Those that have stuck with me, and you see over top where it says Arbeit macht frei, which was German for work shall set you free. That was over every concentration camp gate during World War II. Those that deny the Holocaust, this map has the location of the major Nazi concentration camp and POW camps. This is a concentration camp uniform worn by prisoners. Owner accordion that prisoners were forced to play for the German guards. I won't use the N word. I don't want to get banned. Uniform from somebody who liberated it. It's my friend Rachel. You're live on TikTok. Yes, you are. So, well, I'm going to end the live here because we're going through everything. So, hope everybody's enjoyed that. And I will be posting it on Facebook or on YouTube. It's at Bill_H. So, thanks for joining. Thanks for the likes. And thanks for the follows.
Those are some cool flight jackets.